Andrew Farriss we're talking with today. Andrew Farriss, best known obviously for INXS. He's quite the songwriter on his own accord, quite the musician, and we have a collection of music of his. There's been some music coming out from him over the past, several months. A song here, a song there, but we have a whole EP, Love Makes the World, released this month in October of 2020. Now, listening to some of the interviews you've been doing and reading some of them, my understanding is that this collection came about in part because of the pandemic, but that these are the songs essentially that kind of didn't make the cut for your planned first album. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, yes and no. They didn't suit these songs on my EP, my EP is called Love Makes the World. Mm-hmm. But my LP, which is self-titled, which is Andrew Farriss, I'd released 2 singles already back in the early part of 2020, Come Midnight and Good Mama Bad. And then the world went nuts, right? Mm-hmm. And so I thought about that for a while, and the record company, both for the rest of the world and BBR out in Nashville, said, "Hey, Andrew, you can keep releasing music if you like, but world's gone nuts." Everyone's gone home, including the record companies, and everyone's self-isolating, all this stuff. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, yeah, they're right, the words of wisdom. So, and then I thought, well, I had some other songs, which I'd recorded, luckily, and I was happy with the songs. They just didn't suit my LP. But the lyrics of these songs were more about human relationships, perhaps more intimate sort of songs. And then I recognized that is what we're going through right now. What the world is going through is exactly that. And so I went back to the record company and I said, look, I got these songs. Would you be interested if I put out an EP? And that's why we're talking about it.
The thing that I find interesting in my other artist interviews over the past few months, in fact, I was literally what I'm about to ask is literally the same thing I mentioned to somebody else. I can't remember which artist it was, but it was just the other day. I said there seems to be a wave of songs that are being released now that were written pre-pandemic, now that we use 2020 as like a verb, but in terms of everything that's happening in the world, that weren't written with a mind towards that, but all of a sudden seem so appropriate now, almost as if there was like this anticipation without an unwitting anticipation for what they would mean. You were alluding to that in the last answer. Did that ever kind of strike you as, oh my gosh, I have these songs, like, how did I know I was writing for something that would mean more today than you would have anticipated it back in like 2019, etc.?
Right. Well, that's a really good point. It doesn't surprise me because also if you go back and look at a lot of songs that have come out in the last couple of years, it's all party time and people keep talking about alcohol and all this sort of stuff. But that's not reality. That's not what's happening right now. It's not party time, and we're close to family and friends, and we have to work out how to get ourselves out of the hole we're in and around the world, work it out, and that's for everybody to do, sober. That's not about being out of it or whatever. And to me, one of the things that struck me about what we're going through right now is I keep hearing these people talking about party time, but I don't get it. It's not party time, and the only thing that's going to get us out of all of this is to work together around the world to find a solution, and we're going to then it's party time, right?
When you actually can party, we don't have to deal with pandemics breaking out already. We got a big here in Wisconsin. Actually, we're having a big COVID-19 outbreak happening in my state for the first time, really, with everything that's gone around America. Wisconsin, thankfully, not my part is necessarily the strongest hit, but it's so close right now. It's throughout the state. We're feeling it right now, and there's that sense of,
wow.
You can't really party. You gotta we gotta lock this down at this point. We gotta be as safe as possible. So yeah, the whole note, and there's that tension too that we feel around here because there are a lot of folks. It's inherent. Human nature is you want to do that, but you can't really fully go in because there's so much else going on.
Exactly. I mean, the tracks on my EP called "Love Makes the World" is the EP title, and the songs I've got on my EP are "Tears in the Rain," which is about nature, the environment. My Brother talks about loss of a male figure in your life. "Love Makes the World," which is, of course, the title of my EP, is about the cycle of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the cycle of life is we all come into the world as human beings, and we need someone to help us through life, whether it's your mom, your dad, family, whatever, somebody. And if you live long enough, doesn't matter whether you're Arnold Schwarzenegger or Wonder Woman or whatever it is, at the end of your life, you need someone to help you then too. And that's what that song's about.
Mm-hmm.
All the Stars of Mine is more about an international perspective, about embracing and recognizing that we're all the same, but we're also different culturally, which is a beautiful part of the world. You know,
Mm-hmm.
At different points in my life, I lived in a foreign country. I know to you guys, we all have foreign accents. My wife's from America, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's from Dayton, Ohio. And but at one point in my life, I lived in the UK, which is the other side of the world from Australia. And 2 of my 3 kids are born there. And when you have children that have grown up in a foreign country, it makes you recognize how fortunate you are to be in your own country and you recognize your own politics, your own community, your own culture, your own food, and you reflect on what you saw in another culture, you know, another country. With my band INXS that I worked in and wrote songs for many years, performed and played live with, we worked in 52 countries, you know. The last song on my EP is called First Man on Earth. And that song is about us as biological human beings and the increasing obsession we all have with technology.
What made you want to record this overall project? I'm going to call the whole project, including the EP, the upcoming LP, the whole thing. What made you go, I want to do a sit down, record, collaborate, and do my own project and under my own name?
Right. I feel like I've got like 5 minutes to talk about this, right?
Go ahead. Explain. Go ahead and explain away.
Okay, I'm going to do my best now. You got to bear with me, okay?
Sure.
My wife keeps kicking my ass, saying, "Andrew, keep it brief. Make sure you know what you're talking about." But, right?
Yeah.
Look, I've always been a songwriter. I always will be. I like telling stories, most true stories, and I love songwriting both by myself and with other people. It's all about me. Someone said to me the other day, "Why don't you write songs more about by yourself?" And I said, "Well, that's boring." Right there, you know, I like writing with other writers. You know, I learn something every time, girls and guys. You know, every time I write with another more experienced writer than me or a less experienced writer than me, I always learn something about myself, about songwriting. But how did I end up doing this and what I'm doing? Good question. I felt some time ago, I've always been a songwriter, obviously, but my wife's from Dayton, Ohio, and we used to travel across to Nashville, which is only 5.5 hours drive, which in Aussie terms is not far at all, okay?
Yeah.
To drive anywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't live in a big city. I don't live in the suburbs. I live in the outback, as you guys call it, and I've owned a big farm for many years, and I get my hands dirty and I wash them again. But when it came to being me, I started thinking more about it. I thought, well, I still have songs to write. But when I went to Nashville with my wife, Marlena, and then we thought, well, let's do something different. We'll have a little holiday. We'll go down south and we'll ride horses. So we got involved in like a dude ranch thing. I thought it was going to be like, you know, a swimming pool with chicks in bikinis and tequila shots or whatever. Oh, no, that wasn't what it was. It was like you get your butt out of bed and you ride a horse from 6 o'clock in the morning all day until you're, tired. But the point was, where we went was along the Mexican border, where the Chiricahua Mountains are, and right in the corner of Arizona and New Mexico. And I rode around there with my wife, Marlena, and an old Wrangler guy called Craig Lawson, and his wife, Tam. God bless him, but Craig passed away not that long ago. But we rode all through the national monument areas down there. And I got a first-hand education on the back of a horse about where Geronimo surrendered, about the Mexicans, the Mexican Army, U.S. Cavalry, the Apache Indians, where Geronimo surrendered, up with Cochise's stronghold, Tombstone, the Cowboys, the whole thing. And suddenly I went, this is not a Hollywood film. This is not a fantasy. I get it because of my background in the country in Australia. I understand. Life can be tough and gritty and real and hard, not easy out here for these people. And the culture of the people really impressed me. And it got in me, and it affected me emotionally. So when I went back to Nashville, I recognized from my career from INXS as a pop, rock, funk writer, whatever. When I got back into the country music community back there, I went and they were like, hey, Andrew, what do you want to write about, man? I'm like, you really want to know? I'm like, I'd like to write about the Old West. And they're like, are you like their dude? Hey, that's been what stuff's in the past, I'm like, no, that's not the way I feel it right now. I feel that the world is not like that right now. I feel like the world is actually about culture again. We are coming back into a really important part of our world where we embrace culture, older instruments, not just technology. We're not slaves to technology. We absorb older culture, older instruments, older people's wisdom, and this is what we're into.
I noticed listening through the EP, I've listened through it a few times, and obviously because you are there's going to be a musical thread back to the music of INXS, but I hear that I'm like, okay, yep, it's not just like you can't put a particular label on it, but you go, okay, yeah, I hear that thread. But you being the songwriter, how would you describe your thread of songwriting throughout your entire career for any project and up through this one? What is the similarity? What are your particular points that you always follow when you write a song, all the way going back to the big INXS hits, right through this and everything else?
Wow. That's a huge question. But I got to say, probably just keep it real. Be true to who you are as a songwriter. And the one thing, someone asked me for advice the other day. I remember my dad always said, when you're giving advice, keep it short, keep it brief. So I'd say, as a songwriter, be careful of trains. Because if you follow a train, the train's already left the station. So when the train's left the station, what do? You be yourself, be true to who you are, and when the next train comes along, make sure you're at the front of the train. That's my advice.
You work with some really talented musicians, and a lot of them have INXS ties, but to varying degrees. But like John Stevens and Kieran Gribben and Susan and Markey. How did you choose was it that your familiarity with them? How did you choose your collaborators on this project?
Well, that's a good question. Over a lot of years, I've worked with some incredibly talented people, obviously including Michael Hutchence from INXS. We probably wrote over 350 songs together in the years we knew each other. But since Michael's passing in 1997, I've worked a lot on my own, and I used to work a lot on my own too during the INXS years. But my main thing was I was a lyricist, but also a musician. I played various kinds of instruments. But Michael was never formally trained as a musician. He didn't play instruments. His instrument was his voice. And he's a great lyricist and someone who I respected enormously as a friend and a lyricist and a great singer, amazing singer. But with the people I've chosen to work with in the years now, I'm doing my solo thing more, I work with a hugely different group of people, both younger and older, some very well known and some not so well known, and girls and guys. And I deliberately open my mind to people because one of the most exciting things about songwriting is you're never too old to learn anything. I am continually amazed about what it is I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I work with somebody, I don't consider it a competition. I just say, well, I'm learning from you, and thank God I am. Because every time I do this, I get stronger as a songwriter. And that's one of the most amazing things about songwriting. I feel really blessed to do what I do, and I'm glad that anyone likes my music and my songs, and thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Last question for you before I let you go. Is there a ballpark estimate on when the full album is going to arrive? Is it still kind of based on how the world is going and how the health situation is going? What is that looking like right now?
Yeah, you know what? Who knows? I don't know, to be honest with you, what is in store for us all health-wise. I hope everybody listening to me right now, I hope your friends and your families are all well. And thank you for talking to me. And I hope my own family and friends are well, too. But we're all going through something extraordinary together. But all I can say is that when this pandemic hopefully comes to some sort of conclusion, we can all go back to what we were doing before. I would love to come and play my music to you wherever you are. And thank you for listening to me. My name's Andrew Farriss, and you're on Radio Greatest Hits 98.1 Eau Claire. And